What's up and welcome to KplusGaming Corner, and in this Remnant 2 video, I'm sharing a build I've been using a lot lately as I'm leveling up a new character. If you like rare loot drops and getting those hard to find items like those mythic relic fragments, if you're looking for a build that's great for farming but at the same time can deal out impressive damage numbers, then this is the build for you. So without wasting any more time, let's get into it. Starting with the archetype classes, we're going with the Explorer as our primary and the Invader as the secondary class. Now obviously with the Explorer, this means you'll need to have beaten the main campaign at least once on any difficulty, and the prime perk you get with this class is Lucky, which grants a 35% chance to spawn rarer drops and extra loot when defeating elite enemies. This is more of an endgame setup that will help you round out your build while at the same time not sacrificing any damage potential. For the Explorer skill, we're going with Planeswalker, where you'll be increasing movement speed by 20% when you activate the skill, plus we're reducing stamina cost by 80% for all allies, since we want to be able to move around as much as possible on the battlefield to get the most out of this build. This skill is almost like having the bisected ring on without the downside of taking on 15% increased damage. You could also go with Gold Digger, where when you activate the skill, you're digging into the ground and granting yourself a random buff that lasts for 20 seconds. The fountain that springs out lasts for about 45 seconds, or more if you can spec into skill duration, so you can always run back to it and refresh your buff while it's active. These buffs can include a red fountain for increased damage, blue for damage reduction, green for health regen, and yellow for the haste status buff. My only gripe with this skill is that the buffs truly are random. You have no idea what you're getting until the well springs out. I've been in situations where I really needed the health regen but got haste instead, and unfortunately there's no way to dictate which buff you'll get when you activate the skill. Still fun though, and lends to an entertaining playstyle. The Scavenger damage perk gives us 5% increase to all damage when picking up scraps, ammo, or iron, and this stacks up to 5 times, so that's 25% increased damage you're dealing as long as you're picking up loot consistently, and this can last up to 60 seconds, which is pretty good. The Explorer Relic perk Self-Discovery works really well with this and can keep those stacks going, since whenever you're using a relic, you're instantly filling those Scavenger stacks with an extra stack, so that's 6 stacks whenever you heal, and 30% extra damage, so it's not too hard to keep this damage bonus up whenever you need it. The Invader damage perk is perfect for what we're doing synergistically, since we're constantly on the move, and with the Shark damage perk, sprinting around or dodging grants momentum, which grants 7% ranged and melee damage and 1% crit chance for 15 seconds. This also stacks up to 5 times, so just running around as you normally would now can give up to 35% extra damage dealt plus another 5% crit chance. Another great feature of the Invader class is its relic perk Override, where if you dodge within 10 seconds of using a relic, you leave behind a decoy which lasts around 5 seconds and takes some of the aggro off of you, allowing you to safely reposition yourself on the battlefield for a counterattack or otherwise get yourself to safety. Looking at our amulet choices, I'm going with the Difference engine, which states while a shield is active, we're gaining 20% increased damage dealt, plus we're getting some lifesteal, which is always useful. We'll have multiple ways of generating shield, as I'll explain in a moment, but if you don't have this one or wanted another option, the Ankh of Power could be a nice fit. Birthright of the Lost could also be fun to experiment with. Broken Pocket Watch would be another suggestion, since you can just buy this one from Cass at the ward. Energy Diverter is also a good alternative. You can get this one from the Drazir Replicator on the Rude, or Gift of the Melancholy if you did decide to go with the bisected ring. Of course, the Scavenger's Bauble is great in a build like this if you wanted to maximize the amount of scrap and iron you'll come across. Now, for the rings, as I mentioned, we'll have a few different ways we'll be generating shield to take advantage of our amulet, and one of these is with the Vacuum Seal, where now any scrap, iron, or ammo you're picking up is granting a small amount of shield, enough to activate your 20% extra damage dealt. We're also using the Excess Coil, so whenever we activate a skill, this will also give us some shield, and between these 2 rings, you'll have a shield up the majority of the time while you're fighting. I'm also using the Dran Scavenger Ring, so that scrap, iron, and ammo that's giving you shield is also healing you and increasing all damage dealt by 8%, and this buff lasts for 30 seconds. Feedback Loop rounds things out here, as now when we perfect dodge, we're creating an AoE blast, dealing shock damage and applying the overloaded status onto enemies, and when we get to the traits, you'll see we've made it easier to trigger a perfect dodge, which I'll explain more on that shortly. For some other rings to consider if you don't have all these, as I mentioned earlier, the bisected ring works well here if you don't mind taking the extra damage. The Akari Warband is definitely one to consider if you like increasing crit chance and damage, and Dara's Endless Loop could also fit well here, and Momentum Driver could also be one to look at. The weapons you use for this build are totally flexible. Choose which ones you like best. I've been having a lot of fun with the Monarch lately with the Momentum Mutator, and for the handgun, at the moment I'm using the Tech Pistol with the Familiar mod, one of my favorites, and then I have on the Twisting Wounds Mutator to mix in some damage over time. I've also been running around with the Merciless with Fetid Wounds, which is just filthy, and the Nightfall with the bottom heavy Mutator is also a blast to play with. As usual, I'm using the Salvaged Heart as my relic for the increased use speed, but the Shielded Heart could also be nice. Just keep in mind that this one only gives you shield, it doesn't actually heal you. And you could also try the Lifeless Heart, since this one doubles the amount of relic uses at your disposal, and you'll be able to leave a lot more decoys on the battlefield due to the Invader Relic perk. The relic fragments I have on are for some extra shield, skill cooldown, and skill duration, but feel free to mix and match and experiment to find the combination that works best for your playstyle. This is how I have my trait points set up. This is mostly flexible, although I do recommend speccing into both amplitude for extra AoE size and fitness for a wider evade distance. This helps your feedback loop ring become much more effective, and we certainly like being more effective. So there you have it, that's the build. Lucky Marauder for your endgame adventures, a fast-paced playstyle that works great on Apocalypse difficulty, and here's a snapshot of the loadout. Thanks so much for watching if you made it this far, and please do give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already. It's greatly appreciated and helps out our growing channel more than you know. If you like what you see, consider subscribing to the channel and ringing that notification bell to make sure you're getting all the updates on when I'm going live or dropping new videos. I love you guys, and thanks again for all your support. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Until then, peace!